Chapter 1572. Fei Si lowered her head and remained silent. There was a person standing at the other end of the corridor. Fei Si was naturally aware of the situation and immediately spoke without leaving a trace. Why do you look like you wanted to eat a high-class steak but realized you don't have enough money and can only eat at a roadside stall? As for Aster, perhaps he was unconvinced that Athena had taken control of No Name the moment she appeared, but his presence was still so weak, so he also followed her. Noah turned around and looked at the source of the voice. Seeing that Noah and Fei Si had fallen into a state of speechlessness, the person said with a strange tone. This sentence caused Noah's eyes to flicker. However, Az Dakaha will break out of his seal sooner or later. When that time comes, who knows how many people will lose their precious lives here. The two rulers of the North and South believe that under such circumstances, they must not be pushed too hard. Therefore, it is a good thing to have some topics that can divert their attention. When the other party reported his name to Noah, he spoke in Japanese. If possible, I really hope they can do something serious. Therefore, the man in front of him, who Noah thought was a piece of trash, was undoubtedly a human. Noah was quite interested in will-o-wisp, taking in the souls of innocent children who died. It's just that I don't know if we'll be able to have a peaceful conversation after we meet. On the busy street, Fei Si led Noah and walked slowly in a certain direction. Thus, right after they finished eating breakfast, Athena immediately brought Pest out of No Name's base of operations in the throne hall to search for a suitable location outside. However, at that moment, there was not a single person sitting on the seats that were placed under the sunlight. In other words, if Imperial Gate was translated as Emperor, the person's true identity would be revealed. Seeing that person, Noah raised his eyebrows slightly. Perhaps it was because it had been a long time since she was able to train excellent warriors as a mentor like in the mythological era. Athena seemed to be very motivated. It couldn't be helped. Noah couldn't sense a trace of the aura of a deity from the other party's body. At least, Noah, who was prepared to have a high-level negotiation with the newcomer, felt like he had punched a cotton ball with all his might, causing his chest to be choked with air. Among the upper echelons of the box court, there were very few gods who clearly expressed their opposition to creating a new box court and abandoning the old one. Name? The other party scratched his head and smiled indifferently. Oh. Noah was curious. Then, who are you? His casual words caused Fei Si to stop in her tracks. It's not a problem to meet him. Noah spread out his hands and reminded him meaningfully. There was a need to mention it here. Hearing this, Fei Si said with absolute certainty. The man, who didn't know that he had given Noah the impression of a useless person, said something extremely depressing. It's very simple. Fei Si said. Today, we will book this place. Fei Si said to Noah. Just like before. Noah paused for a moment at Fei Si's words, but he quickly regained his composure. Because, among the upper echelons of the box court, there is no one who cares more about the survival of mankind than him. There is also no one who is closer to mankind than him. It was a voice that sounded very immature and frivolous at first glance. It was an open-air restaurant opened by the commercial community, 6 Wounds, which was still under the Dragonhorn Griffin Lion Alliance. It seems that everyone is still talking about Sir Noah's great feat of sealing millions of deities in one fell swoop. Yes. Fei Si was silent for a moment, then nodded. After saying that, Fei Si didn't say anything else. She silently led the way and brought Noah to a place. In Japanese, the word imperial had a way of reading it. It was the same as the word emperor. The moment she appeared, she said something that would cause others to look down on her. Moreover, it was very boring. What was going on here? Curious about this, Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia and even Ren followed after Athena. They seemed to want to see how exactly Athena was going to teach Pest. Your Excellency Noah, there's someone I hope you can meet. Since I've returned, I won't let that lizard kill anyone in front of me. Then, Noah spoke. Then, where is the person you want me to meet? Not to mention Noah, even Fei Si couldn't keep her composure. The surrounding passers-by all looked at Noah. Their eyes were filled with respect and admiration. This made Noah feel somewhat puzzled. My apologies, the person walked up to Noah and Fei Si and said with a smile. Since that was the case, wouldn't it be better to just bring him to the minister's hall? Why did they have to do it in a public place? From the looks of it, it was no longer at the level of being speechless. Rather, it was at the level of giving up on talking to him. Just as they walked out of No Name's base in the minister's hall, Noah discovered them. Oh. They're already here. Forget it, Noah looked around as if he had given up. He saw a man walking out from a building not far from the open-air restaurant. Although he did not know how to adopt the souls of dead children, as someone who had also adopted a bunch of children, Noah might be able to get some resonance from the practice of will-o-wisp. That might not be the case. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched slightly, but there was nothing he could do. He could only look at the person and say straightforwardly. Sakra. Sakra of Imperial Gate. You. Noah looked at the man who called himself Sakra of Imperial Gate in shock. Chapter 1573. Sakra. Although there were many gods in Indian mythology, if one only talked about the degree of fame, then if one asked 1,000 people who knew Indian mythology, those 1,000 people would all say this name. Thunder God. Military God. Hero God. King of Gods. This deity had many complicated attributes. However, in India's oldest sacred book, Rigveda, more than 30% of the content was praising him. Later on, Sakra converted to Buddhism, which made many people know that he was the guardian of Buddhism. However, if one were to look into his origin, Sakra's spirit was one of the strongest and oldest gods that could rival the main god of Greece and the only god of Western Europe. This god was a super god with such a noble status and power. Such an existence was definitely at the level of the king of gods, but he didn't have the aura of a god. Instead, he was like a good-for-nothing human. Wasn't that enough to surprise people? No, compared to being a good-for-nothing, the fact that he was a human was the reason why Noah was surprised. After all, in the inheritance of Indian mythology, Sakra was originally a useless god. He was addicted to alcohol and was fond of women. It was even said that he only did things that didn't need to be done. If he hadn't converted to Buddhism, he would have been despised to the point of being ashamed. Therefore, compared to the fact that he was a good-for-nothing, Noah was more surprised that he didn't feel the aura of a god from him. Logically speaking, with Sakra's divinity, in front of Noah's superb sensing ability, it should be impossible to hide the aura of a god. Even if he could hide the aura, there was no way to fake the unique aura of a human. But in front of Noah, this man who called himself Imperial Gate Shirtian was like an ordinary human. There was no sense of disharmony at all. This made Noah surprised for a while, and then his heart moved. Descending from heaven and becoming a human. The so-called descending from heaven and becoming a human referred to reincarnation as a human. In Indian mythology, such inheritance was not uncommon. For example, Vishnu descended from heaven and became a human in order to annihilate the demon king Ravana that the gods and demons couldn't harm. He reincarnated and became Prince Rama, widely known as the hero who annihilated the demon king. This was the only possibility Noah could think of for Imperial Gate Shirtian's situation. And it turned out that Noah's guess was correct. As expected, I can't hide anything from you, someone who can even seal a sky full of gods and Buddhas. Immortal Gate Shirtian curled his lips into a smile. There's nothing I can do about it. In the heavenly realm, I belong to a faction that's closer to humans after all. If I don't descend from the heavens to become a human and lower my own spiritual level, those guys up there won't allow a Lord God-level existence to wander around in the lower realm. In the end, it might even evolve into an enemy. Indeed, from what Noah could sense, Imperial Gate Shirtian's aura was too weak compared to the one in the inheritance. If Yumin Shirtian was really that Sakra, then he should be at the top of the 3 digits. In terms of strength, he should be even stronger than Aziz Dakaha. Among the 3 figures, the only one who could firmly suppress Sakra was probably the Queen of Halloween. However, now, the aura of Imperial Gate Shirtian in front of Noah was a little too weak compared to that kind of existence. The current me is at most a 4-digit level. To you, that's an existence that can be dealt with one punch, Imperial Gate Shirtian said carelessly. So, there's no need for you to be on guard against me. Let's open up our hearts and have a good chat, how about it? Well, if you're really that celestial emperor, then there's no need to be on guard against you. Noah sighed, then suddenly smiled. If it's another god, I'll have to consider whether the other party descended from the heavens to become a human to deal with another cosmology. Hearing this, no matter how careless Imperial Gate Shirtian was, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. That's true. Compared to the current me, I, who was originally the strongest species, am even less likely to pose a threat to you. It's a little unnecessary. Okay, the 2 of you, please don't continue to stand here and talk. It's a little too eye-catching. Fei Si finally spoke. Let's go inside and talk. Noah and Imperial Gate Shirtian both nodded. Together with Fei Si, they walked into the open-air restaurant, chose a corner farthest from the street, and sat down. Presumably, you should already know the purpose of my visit, right? Imperial Gate Shirtian said straightforwardly. I'm here to ask you to release the group of gods that you've sealed. Noah's expression didn't change at all. He picked up the coffee that had just been served by the waiter, took a sip first, and then responded very naturally. The group of gods that you mentioned that I've sealed shouldn't be just the group of gods from Hindu mythology led by the famous celestial emperor, right? That's right. Imperial Gate Shirtian nodded. I hope you can release all the gods. What's the reason? Noah didn't raise his head and continued to drink his coffee. The gods of heaven came to find trouble with me, so I have a reason to seal them, but I don't seem to have a reason to release them, do I? That's why those guys who are at their wits' end can only beg me to negotiate with you. Imperial Gate Shirtian sighed and looked deeply at Noah. And if you need a reason, then if you don't release the group of gods, then countless worlds will welcome the collapse of mankind, and mankind will be completely wiped out. How about that reason? This sentence made Noah's hands suddenly stop moving. The atmosphere became heavy all of a sudden. As everyone knows, the gods exist because of the faith of mankind, and mankind relies on the grace of the gods to survive. So, whether the gods or mankind came first, this question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, has never been solved until now. Imperial Gate Shirtian looked directly at Noah. However, there is no doubt that the gods and mankind are existences that depend on each other. Whichever side perishes, the other side may disappear. And the gods sealed by His Excellency Noah are the foundation of almost every mythological system. Fei Si continued Imperial Gate Shirtian's words. If His Excellency Noah continues to seal them, it is very likely that it will cause the balance between the gods and mankind to be destroyed. At that time, mankind's faith will be overturned, and the existence of the gods will be wiped out. The entire history of the gods and mankind will completely collapse, and then the mankind of countless worlds will be destroyed, Imperial Gate Shirtian said. As a reason for you to release the group of gods, I wonder if this is enough. The whole place suddenly fell silent. Noah closed his eyes and continued to drink his coffee as he spoke calmly. In other words, you intend to use such consequences to threaten me. It's not a threat. Imperial Gate Shirtian hurriedly shook his head. Anyway, it's useless for you to keep sealing so many gods. At most, you're just venting your anger. Since you've vented your anger, why don't we just end things peacefully? Isn't that good? End things peacefully. Noah opened his eyes and looked at Imperial Gate Shirtian with extreme sarcasm. Then let me ask you. If I release all the gods, can you guarantee that the arrogant gods that I've sealed will not resent me and continue to cause trouble for me, or even the people around me? I really can't guarantee that those fellows won't resent you. Imperial Gate Shirtian scratched his head in annoyance. However, if you believe me, I can make those fellows stop causing trouble for you and the people around you. I can also give you the same promise on behalf of the Queen. If any of the gods were to oppose you in the future, they would be punished by the Queen of Halloween, including the Celtic gods, Faye said at the right time. In addition, Your Excellency is trusted by the White Knight King and has even entrusted the sovereignty of the sun to you. With the deterrence of the White Knight King and the Queen of Halloween, I believe that no god group will be so brazen as to seek their own deaths. If they don't dare to do it brazenly, then wouldn't they dare to do it secretly? Noah pursed his lips. There's a saying that goes, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. I don't want to regret my choice today in the future. Imperial Gate Shirtian and Faye immediately fell silent. After a while, Imperial Gate Shirtian spoke helplessly. Then, what will it take for you to release the sealed gods? What do you think? Noah's eyes flashed slightly, and he suddenly smiled. Since those fellows are causing trouble for me because of the sovereignty of the sun, then I'll learn from them. The next second, Noah made a declaration. If you want me to release the sealed gods, then use the remaining 8 sun sovereigns in exchange. Chapter 1574. Sun Sovereignty. Whether it was Yumin Shirtian or Faye Si, they were both shocked. Obviously, the two did not expect Noah to propose such a condition. Faye Si even spoke with great emotion. You want to gather all the sun sovereignty? Why? Noah answered without changing his expression. Is there a problem? Yumin Shirtian and Faye Si looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Was there a problem with gathering all the sun sovereignty? Of course, there would be no problem. However, that was something that no one had been able to do until now. In the past, in the gift game that decided the ownership of the sun sovereignty, White Yiksha won again and again, but in the end, he only obtained 14 sun sovereignty. And Halloween Queen, who was regarded as a strong opponent by White Yiksha, only obtained 6 sun sovereignty. As for the remaining 4 sun sovereignty, even White Yiksha and Halloween Queen did not fight for it. They could only let it flow out and be obtained by various existences and forces. Even White Yiksha and Halloween Queen, who stood at the pinnacle of the box court, could not do it. Now, Noah, a human, wanted to do it. It was believed that if anyone heard this, even if they knew that Noah had the ability to seal millions of god groups, they would still not know whether to laugh or cry, right? However, at this point, Yumin Shirtian and Faye Si were shocked to find out. Noah, it was really possible to do it. Out of a total of 24 sun sovereignty, 16 sun sovereignty is currently in my hands. Of the remaining 8 sun sovereignty, Halloween Queen has 6, and the other 2 are missing. Noah said as if talking to himself. However, there are more than tens of thousands of god groups in the heaven realm. If no god group has the sun sovereignty, then they are really living as dogs. Yumin Shirtian and Faye Si were speechless. Looking at Yumin Shirtian and Faye Si like this, Noah spoke slowly. Since those gods and Buddhas are preparing to create a new box court and collect sun sovereigns, it's impossible that they haven't collected 2 sun sovereigns. In addition to the 6 sun sovereigns in the hands of Halloween Queen, the other 8 sun sovereigns that aren't in my hands are all on the god side. After saying that, Noah looked at Yumin Shirtian and Faye Si with a burning gaze. In order to obtain the sovereignty of the sun from my hands, the gods did not hesitate to openly snatch it away. Now, I will return the favor. Just tell the higher-ups. Noah declared in an unquestionable tone. If you want me to release the sealed deities, then give me the remaining 8 sun sovereigns in exchange. Otherwise, forget it. His resolute and decisive words caused immortal Shirtian and Fei Si to open their mouths slightly, but they were unable to utter a single word for a long time. The two of them had no idea at all. At this time yesterday, Noah actually didn't have any thoughts of returning an eye for an eye. However, things were different now. Noah needed to gather all of the sun sovereigns to draw out all of his possibilities and reach the peak. For Noah, the remaining 8 sun sovereigns were definitely things that he had to obtain. However, most of the remaining 8 sun sovereigns were in the hands of Halloween Queen, and the remaining 2 were nowhere to be found. Where was Noah supposed to find them? Fortunately, the gods of the heaven realm were courting their own deaths. They also delivered themselves to Noah for the sake of the sun sovereigns. They were sealed by Noah, giving Noah the opportunity to obtain all of the remaining sun sovereigns in a short period of time. As a result, those gods who had designs on Noah could only go for wool and come home shorn. Yumin Shirtian and Fei Si also understood this point. At that moment, a bitter smile appeared on Fei Si's face. Is there no room for further discussion? There is no room for further discussion. Noah said without any hesitation. Other than this condition, I won't accept any other conditions. Is this okay? Yumin Shirtian's expression was also somewhat bitter. No matter what, the history of the gods and the history of mankind are dependent on each other. If you do this and the gods don't agree, it won't be a good thing when the time comes and the fish dies and the net splits. Don't talk to me about things like righteousness and benevolence. Those gods are just greedy for life and afraid of death. Noah was more or less disdainful. Aziz Dakaha alone forced those guys to abandon the box and ignore the lives of the humans in the lower realm. If that's the case, why should I care about the lives of the gods? Moreover, I believe in the possibility of humans. Noah looked directly at Yumin Shirtian. Even without faith, without the grace of the gods, humans can still survive and won't perish. No matter what kind of desperate situation you're in, you can still find a chance to survive. That's what humans are like. Noah couldn't help but smile. Isn't it because he was attracted by the possibility of humans that the famous celestial emperor became the most loyal supporter of humans? The bitter expression on Yumin Shirtian's face became more intense bit by bit. Let's just mention it here. The existence known as Indra was once the evil god of the Zoroastrianism during the era known as Indra's era. Both Hindu mythology and Persian mythology were deeply related to the Vedic mythology. Many of the gods in Indian and Persian myths were, in fact, evolved from Vedic myths. Indra was one of them. Aziz Dakaha was also one of them. These two gods originated from the Vedic mythology and were gradually divided into the Buddhist mythology of Hindu mythology and the Zoroastrianism of Persian mythology. They were once evil gods of the same origin. The difference was that Indra was taken in by the Buddhist sect and gradually evolved into the present Indra. He became the king of gods in Hindu mythology and the evil god's divinity was abandoned. Aziz Dakaha, on the other hand, had always carried out his belief as an evil god and had survived, even becoming the final trial for the humans. It was said before that Velaslana was equivalent to Indra. That was because Indra was taken in by the Buddhist sect in Hindu mythology. Indra's divinity in the Zoroastrianism became a part of Mitra's divinity and was inherited by Velaslana, who split from Mitra's body. Perhaps it was because Indra had converted to Buddhism and abandoned the evil side of him, which was absorbed by Persian mythology. That was why Indra, who was supposed to be an evil god, and Mitra, who was supposed to be the god of contract, were connected together. After all, in the Persian mythology, Mitra also had a story of destroying evil and making people abandon evil and turn to good. He made a contract with him and showed the interdependence of good and evil. Thinking about it this way, Noah and Yumin-Shir-Tian also had an extraordinary relationship. At least, the power in Noah's body that belonged to Velaslana was of the same origin as Indra. It was said that the reason why Indra abandoned evil and turned to good had a lot to do with the life in the lower realm. That was why the high and mighty king of the gods stood on the side of the residents of Hakata from beginning to end, right? Then, this human who called himself Yumin-Shir-Tian was no doubt the one who understood the meaning of Noah's words the most. Under such circumstances, Yumin-Shir-Tian finally surrendered. I understand what you mean, I will bring it back to those guys above. I believe that the group of gods who hid the sovereignty of the two suns will not fight to the death with you for the sovereignty of the two suns. Even if the group of gods who hid the sovereignty of the two suns was not willing to take them out, the other groups of gods would not agree. After all, it was a matter of life and death for the other groups of gods. So, the other groups of gods should also put pressure on the group of gods who hid the sovereignty of the two suns, forcing them to take them out. But Yumin-Shir-Tian glanced at Fei Si. I can't guarantee the queen. Suddenly, Noah also looked at Fei Si. Under the gazes of the two men, Fei Si's expression was a little uncertain. Finally, she sighed. I will also tell Her Majesty what you mean. In order to save the entire cultic group of gods, I believe that even the queen will compromise, right? In other words, the remaining 8 sons were already under Noah's name. Noah did not hide his laughter and said so. Then I will give the 2 of you one day. At this time tomorrow, I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. What else could Yumin-Shir-Tian and Fei Si do? The 2 of them could only nod helplessly. Chapter 1575. Under Noah's anticipation, the next day quickly arrived. The members of No Name, who didn't know what Noah had done in a single day, were also in high spirits as they followed Athena and Pest outside for their special training. However, perhaps because they were bored, Aster didn't follow them this time. Instead, he obediently transformed into his elven device and accompanied Noah. Other than Aster, Ren also didn't follow them. After all, 16th Night was still unconscious and couldn't be left unattended. As the leader of the community, Ren seemed to have accepted the responsibility of taking care of 16th Night. Undoubtedly, there were so many cute girls in No Name, but they were reduced to being taken care of by Ren. If 16th Night woke up and found out about this, she would definitely be very unhappy, right? Noah, on the other hand, obediently stayed in No Name's base in the minister's hall until he felt that it was about time. Then, he walked out of the minister's hall and headed towards the outdoor cafe that he had been at yesterday. This time, it was still the same as before. Noah returned to the cafe under the gazes of respect and reverence of many people. He sat down at the same place as yesterday and ordered a cup of black coffee from the waiter. He sat there quietly and waited for the arrival of Imperial Shir-Tian and Fei Si. Imperial Shir-Tian and Fei Si didn't make Noah wait for too long. At around the same time as yesterday, Imperial Shir-Tian and Fei Si appeared in the outdoor cafe at the same time. As soon as they appeared, Fei Si politely lowered her head. Sorry to keep you waiting. Sorry. Imperial Shir-Tian casually waved his hand. Although I can use the realm gate and distance isn't a problem, it still takes a lot of time to convince those old fogies. Fortunately, I made it in time. There's nothing to apologize for. You're not late. Moreover, I've already prepared to wait here for you all day. Noah wasn't in a hurry. He first called the waiter over and ordered drinks for the 2. After the waiter left, he looked at Imperial Shir-Tian and Fei Si. Looking at you two, you shouldn't be bringing me any bad news, right? Sort of. Yumin-Shir-Tian seemed to feel a little tired. After sighing, he scratched his head. I don't know what kind of news the Queen Night will bring, but I do have some good news. Is that so? Noah's eyes lit up as he smiled. In other words, it's done. Although those fellows showed that they would rather die than submit in the beginning, after all, no one is willing to joke about the future of the entire pantheon for the sovereignty of two sons. Yuman spread his hands, took out a gift card from his bosom, and pushed it in front of Noah. So, for the time being, I did not disappoint and obtained the two sun sovereigns collected by the gods. Looking at the gift card that was pushed in front of him by Yuman, Noah somewhat impatiently picked it up. Clang! No, the Queen has actually agreed to transfer the Sun Sovereigns to His Excellency Noah in order to let His Excellency Noah release the sealed gods. Agreed. Noah was slightly stunned. Agreed. Imperial Guard Shirtian was also stunned for a moment, and then said to Fei Si. Then why are you still hesitating? I'm hesitating because although the Queen agreed to transfer the Sun Sovereigns to His Excellency Noah, she has a request. Fei Si looked straight at Noah and said word by word. His Excellency Noah, the Queen wants me to tell you that if you want the Sun Sovereigns in her hands, she hopes to give it to you in person. What? Noah was surprised. Give it to me in person. Yes. Fei Si nodded heavily. So, please get ready, His Excellency Noah, and come with me to see the Queen. After that, Imperial Guard Shirtian left directly. According to him, his mission had been completed. If it was to accompany Noah, it would be fine, but there was no need to accompany such a dangerous person. That was natural. Although the Halloween Queen was one of the central figures of the Celtic gods, she was also a demon king. Once upon a time, White Yiksha was also a demon king. However, after converting to Buddhism and obtaining the divinity of Yiksha, White Yiksha gave up the title of demon king and became the ruler of the hierarchy. The Halloween Queen was also a demon king. Moreover, until now, she was still a demon king and had no intention of turning over a new leaf. Such an existence, coupled with Imperial Guard Shirtian's evaluation of her as temperamental, was needless to say how dangerous she was. If the Halloween Queen was so dangerous, Noah also did not want to deal with her. However, this time, Noah would not back down here. Noah was determined to get the Sun Sovereigns. Therefore, under Fei Si's lead, Noah and Imperial Guard Shirtian went their separate ways and walked out of the street. So, where should I go to see the Halloween Queen? Noah asked Fei Si beside him. Go with you to the three-digit stratum. No need for that, Fei Si answered directly. Let's go back to the minister's hole. Back to the minister's hole. Noah could not help but blink. Seeing Noah's puzzled expression, Fei Si explained. The Queen is an existence that dominates the stars and the stars. She can connect any place to her location. Even the door of a parallel world can be easily opened. We just need to go back to the minister's hall to see the Queen. Chapter 1576. Halloween Queen. Just like the name mentioned, it was an existence that had a lot to do with Halloween. Just like the White Night King was the incarnation of White Night, Halloween Queen was also the deification of Halloween. Therefore, this existence formed from the Hallowmas divinity was known as the Queen of Hallowmas. There were many rumors about this queen in the world. It was said that she was a typical problem child. If 16 Nights, Flying Bird, and Radiance were considered problem children, then Halloween Queen was definitely a problem child among problem children. At least, 16 Nights, Flying Bird, and Radiance's freedom were limited to only one person. Halloween Queen's pranks, on the other hand, could affect the entire box. Moreover, the most important problem was that Her Majesty's temperament was quite changeable. Sometimes, she could suddenly kill someone while she was smiling. Other times, she would inexplicably forgive the person who made her angry when she was extremely angry. There was even a time when the Halloween Queen did not hesitate to use the power of realm manipulation to teleport the entire environment of other places to a place she liked because the environment of one of the outer areas of the box court was quite bad. Because of this, she did not hesitate to make a move. She used the power of realm manipulation to teleport the entire environment of other places to create a place she liked at will, causing a huge commotion. Therefore, Halloween Queen was the Devil Queen, and Imperial Gate Shirtion disliked her so much. In any case, Halloween Queen was indeed very dangerous. Even Fei Si had to admit this fact. So, the Queen didn't say that I can go with you. If I go with Sir Noah to see the Queen, it is very likely that the Queen will be angry. In the main hall of the throne hall, Fei Si said to Noah who was beside her. Your Excellency Noah, please decide for yourself what to do next. Decide for myself. Noah was really helpless. In other words, as long as I walk around the throne hall, I can see Halloween Queen. If there must be an explanation, then it's more or less like that. Fei Si was also helpless and could only give Noah such a suggestion. In short, Sir Noah only needs to walk around the throne hall and avoid places with people. If you see any door that you normally don't, then go in and take a look. After saying that, Fei Si turned around and left the main hall of the minister's throne hall. Looking at Fei Si's receding figure, Noah wanted to call out to her several times, but in the end, he held himself back and sighed. I have no choice. I can only walk around casually. Noah didn't doubt that he could find the person he was looking for. After all, Fei Si had also said that the Halloween Queen, who could manipulate the star realm, could connect any place to her location. Her ability was quite impressive. Noah only knew 2 existences who could control realms. When Noah walked into the courtyard, the door behind him suddenly trembled and gradually dissipated like a phantom. This scene made Noah frown slightly, but he didn't say anything and continued to walk inside the courtyard. However, Noah didn't finish this part of the road. In the next second, something that even Noah didn't expect happened. Clang! The ground of the entire courtyard suddenly flashed with a bright golden light. Noah's face changed, and without hesitation, he jumped up and flew into the air. In that instant, the entire ground that was shining with a bright golden light actually shattered bit by bit like glass. Not only the ground, but even the surrounding space and even the sky above were like fragile glass, cracking little by little in the sound of kacha kacha. Finally, it completely collapsed. Noah only felt that the sky was spinning, and immediately, the whole world collapsed. As if to replace the collapsed world, Noah was directly thrown to a place. Noah, who was suspended in the air, surveyed his surroundings. However, the scene that entered his eyes caused his pupils to involuntarily shrink. At this moment, Noah was in the darkness where there was no gravity at all. There was no sky here, nor was there any land. There was only boundless darkness. In this boundless darkness, the only source of light was a huge celestial body. Yes. Star. The place where Noah was now was called the universe by others. So, there was no gravity or even air here. The feeling of suffocation began to attack Noah's mind. Noah held his breath as he scanned the surrounding celestial bodies. The next moment, Noah's eyes gradually became dignified. Because Noah saw it. Black shadows flew out from the celestial bodies like locusts, covering the sky and the earth as they surged out from the celestial bodies. Those black shadows, some were phantasmal beasts with the appearance of various wild beasts, some were ferocious demons, and even angels with wings on their backs. With his superb sensing ability, Noah could easily detect them. Those phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons, each of them was at least a 5-digit existence. An army composed of all kinds of 5-digit existences, like bees flying out of their hive, rushed out into outer space in swarms. Their target was Noah. Teleporting people to outer space in an instant, and summoning phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons. Is there a need to consider who can do such a thing? Want to show me who's boss? Halloween Queen. Endless divine power suddenly flowed in Noah's body. In the depths of Noah's heart, the stone plate with 10 patterns on the outlines suddenly turned and pointed in one direction. The pattern of a warrior holding a golden sword. Chapter 1577. In the boundless cosmic sea, the space trembled repeatedly, causing waves of invisible ripples to reverberate in the surroundings. Amidst the frequent tremors of space ripples, the phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons rushed out from the celestial bodies like locusts. They seemed to have directly passed through an invisible door, constantly shortening the distance between them and Noah. In the past, Maxwell used the method of manipulating realms to summon servants for him to command and fight for him. However, Maxwell's method was at most using a space jump to transfer the servants from elsewhere. Now, the Queen, who manipulated the star realm, crossed the barrier between celestial bodies and celestial bodies, summoning phantasmal beasts, demons, and angels from other worlds. Although the celestial bodies seemed to be in the same space, in fact, those celestial bodies were not in the same world at all. They were just connected by the Queen of Halloween with her own power and made the creatures living in the celestial bodies of different worlds fight for her. That scene was simply a nightmare. Phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons from different worlds rushed out from the celestial bodies of different worlds, and there were simply countless of them. In other words, Noah was now facing creatures from dozens of celestial bodies. Compared with the overwhelming army that was constantly rushing out from the celestial bodies, Noah was simply a drop of water in the sea that would be drowned in an instant. However, in the face of that extremely terrifying scene, Noah's face did not show the slightest fear. The next moment, Noah chanted softly, "With my skill of words, let the justice of the world appear." This incantation is powerful and eloquent, a sword of wisdom that calls for victory. As everyone knew, sound could not be transmitted in a vacuum. However, at this moment, Noah's voice reverberated in the entire universe in an incredible manner, and it became clear and audible. Along with the voice of the spirit of speech, a dazzling golden light suddenly surged out like a tide. With Noah as the center, it instantly covered the entire surrounding space. Immediately, Noah closed his eyes and declared loudly as if talking to himself, "Queen of Halloween, you are the personification of Halloween, and also an existence that has been deified by people." The bright light that covered the entire surrounding space suddenly stagnated, and there were bursts of dim light shining inside. Halloween, also known as All Saints' Day, is a traditional Western festival. By the 2000s, this festival had become an entertainment activity. However, looking at its origin, Halloween was originally a traditional sacrifice held during the prosperous period of the ancient Celtic people. Amidst the dim light, golden swords engraved with mysterious runes gradually took shape. In an instant, they filled the entire space as though they were arrayed in a formation. In ancient times, the Celtic people had a tradition of worshipping the sun, which changed its brilliance with the change of the 4 seasons, as a symbol of life and death. Death. That was the Celtic people's belief in the sun, and that belief was the prototype of Halloween. The neatly arranged golden swords suddenly spun, the tips of the swords pointing in all directions. The day of Halloween is the day when summer officially ends, and also the beginning of the new year. On this day, the harsh winter begins. People believe that the souls of the dead will return to their former homes on this day, and look for life on the living to be reborn. Moreover, they also firmly believe that this is the only hope for people to be reborn after death. At this moment, the golden sword silently swept out, drawing a beautiful trajectory in the universe and shooting toward the locust-like phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons that were swarming over like a swarm of locusts. The living are afraid that the souls of the dead will come to seize life. Therefore, people will extinguish the fire and candles on this day, so that the souls of the dead can't find the living. They will also dress up as demons and ghosts to scare the souls of the dead away. After that, people will reignite the fire and candles, and start a new year. Therefore, this day is the time to worship the souls of the dead in ancient times. While avoiding the interference of evil spirits, they also worshipped the ancestral spirits and good spirits with food to pray for peace to survive the harsh winter. The phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons that were ranked in the top 5 seemed to be unusually disdainful of the golden swords that were shooting toward them. They let out a roar that could not be heard in the vacuum, and fearlessly charged toward the golden swords that were shooting toward them like raindrops. Queen of Halloween, the reason why you are the center of the Celtic gods is because Halloween is the time for the Celts to worship. On this day, the sun's radiance changes according to the changes of the seasons. The Celts worship the sun as the symbol of life and death. This proves that you have an extremely deep relationship with the sun. Thus, you were gradually regarded as the god of the Celtic gods, and because of this, you were deified and became the center of the Celtic gods. Just as the phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons were about to collide with the rain of golden swords that were shooting toward them like raindrops, the golden swords that were emitting a bright light suddenly stopped. However, among the Celtic gods, the real sun god is Ruger, the father of Cuchulainn, the son of light. Logically speaking, the center of the gods should be Ruger, who is the sun god, but in the end, it became you who has a deep relationship with the sun. Why is that? The golden swords that had stopped suddenly spun around and pierced into the void like meteors. The reason is very simple. The Celtic people have the concept of ancestor worship. The custom of this people is to worship their ancestors as gods. Ruger was created based on this concept. In the void that was pierced by the golden swords, the rippling power that was originally reverberating like an invisible ripple was violently cut off. Worshipping a famous person in the past as a god should be classified as a heroic spirit, but because of this, Ruger received the postnatal belief and was elevated to a god. In other words, the sun god Ruger is not the strongest kind. The invisible ripples that were cut off by the golden swords were the power of Halloween Queen's realm manipulation. This power was mercilessly cut off by the sword of spirit speech that existed specifically to cut off the Queen of Halloween's ability, disappearing without a trace like a ripple. The power that connected the star realms was cut off, and the stars in different worlds also disappeared one by one. The army of phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons that swarmed out like a swarm of locusts suddenly let out roars and shouts of unwillingness. The moment the power of the realm disappeared, they also continuously disappeared and returned to their original world. Because Ruger is not the strongest kind, in the end, as the personification of Halloween, you, who was born in the sun, will be the center of the Celtic gods who are mostly postnatal gods. You will exist as the strongest kind in Celtic mythology to manage the operation of the sun. After severing the power of the star realm and the star realm, the golden swords that covered the sky and earth immediately turned into streams of light and gathered together. In the stream of light, a huge golden sword that was more than 1,000 meters long gradually took shape. The sword body bloomed with a dazzling light like the sun. Noah suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed at the endless universe in front of him. That is to say, Queen of Halloween, although you are a festival that has been deified, you are not a god. Instead, you are a star spirit born from the sun in the realm of life and death. That is your true essence. The gigantic golden sword that reached the heavens and the earth suddenly tilted and slashed down heavily at the endless space that Noah was pointing at. Poochie! With an incredible tearing sound that could be heard in the vacuum, the huge golden sword that slashed down directly cut a crack in the endless universe. I am the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. Whether human or demon, I am the one who defeats the hostility of all enemies. I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way, in the holy words of the God of Victory, which symbolized the eternal invincibility of the God of Victory. The endless universe that was violently slashed began to spread with the huge crack as the center. Then, the universe that was full of cracks once again shattered little by little like fragile glass. Noah, who was floating in the cosmic sea, only felt a solid feeling coming from under his feet. The air also suddenly poured into his lungs, allowing his breath that had been held to finally return to normal. Only then did Noah slowly open his eyes. Then, a figure was imprinted into Noah's eyes. Chapter 1578. When Noah opened his eyes, the first thing that entered his field of vision was the girl who was like the incarnation of the sun. At this time, Noah had returned to the courtyard he saw before, standing in the position where he was transferred to the universe at the beginning. In front of Noah was naturally the pavilion with the round stone table. The girl, who was as bright as the sun, was sitting behind the round stone table, holding her cheek with one hand, tilting her head, and looking straight at Noah with the curious eyes of a playful girl. "Are you Noah Doria? You're much more interesting than I thought." The girl's voice was as clear as water droplets dripping on a lake. It was quite pleasant to hear. And the other party's appearance was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. Long hair that was as bright as gold and reached her waist. Dazzling eyes that were like the combination of sky blue and emerald gems. She was wearing a princess-like dress, but also like the dance dress of a minority race. It was quite gorgeous. On her head, a crown-like headdress sat there, complementing her bright golden hair that reached down to her waist, giving off a very dazzling and noble feeling. Looking at the extraordinarily beautiful girl who was looking at him with a curious gaze, Noah's expression didn't relax at all. Because the body of the girl who seemed to be 17 or 18 years old was an incarnation connected to the star. The strongest species that dominated day and night, life and death, spring and summer, autumn and winter, and the star realm and star realm. The star spirit of the sun, queen of Halloween. An existence equal to White Yiksha, at this time, appeared in front of Noah like a playful and cute young girl. Facing Queen of Halloween's curious gaze, Noah's eyes flashed with a somewhat sarcastic light. "It's really difficult to see you, Your Majesty." His words made the Halloween queen pout her cute little mouth, making her look more like an ordinary young girl. Then, the other party said such a sentence as if she was being difficult. "Just call me queen, I don't like that kind of address." "Is that so?" Noah said, unmoved. "But I also don't like the way he treated the guests just now. But thanks to this, I also know how interesting you are." Halloween Queen didn't reflect on herself at all and looked straight at Noah with a smile. "Originally, I was thinking that if the one who had the guts to have ideas about the sovereignty of the sun on me was a boring guy, then I'd simply make him disappear." Halloween Queen's words didn't carry any sense of threat. She was simply stating the truth. Clearly, the star spirit of the sun did intend to kill Noah. "If you kill me, aren't you afraid that those sealed gods will never see the sun again?" Noah didn't say that out loud. Because Noah had already understood the true cruelty hidden in the heart of the Halloween Queen. That was a monster that could not be restrained by common sense. Therefore, even if she knew that the consequences of doing so were very serious, the Halloween Queen would still do it without hesitation. The so-called problem children referred to this kind of people. No wonder even Sakra kept a respectful distance from the Halloween Queen, and Fei Si didn't dare to lead the way without the consent of the Halloween Queen. After all, if they didn't do it well, they wouldn't even know when they would be killed, and they would die very cowardly. Unfortunately, Noah was not a cowardly person. So, Noah spoke indifferently in a tone without any change in emotion. "Is it really just because of the sovereignty of the sun that you intend to make me disappear?" The Halloween Queen raised her eyebrows and said with interest. "Otherwise? Is there any other reason?" "Isn't there one?" Noah said as if he was kindly reminding her. "For example, my relationship with White Yiksha is very good, and the famous Halloween Queen is very unhappy with the friend of her biggest enemy, so she couldn't help but make a move." The smile on the Halloween Queen's face slowly disappeared, and the eyes that stared at Noah carried a frightening coldness. With the change in mood of the Halloween Queen, the surrounding space seemed to be filled with a pressure that could take away people's body temperature. However, Noah seemed to feel nothing and said to himself, "I'm really glad that White Yiksha's relationship with you is not good. If her relationship with you is too good, maybe I have to keep a little distance from her. With such a sentence, Noah glanced at the Halloween Queen and suddenly smiled. After all, I don't even have a good impression of you, Your Majesty. The pressure in the air suddenly became like a storm, and it violently shook in the direction of Noah. However, at the moment of contact with Noah, the pressure seemed to be bounced off by Noah's body, disappearing without a trace like scattered water. Taking a closer look, Noah's body was flowing with a faint layer of light. That was divine power. Noah, who released a little bit of the endless divine power in his body and maintained it on the surface of his body, shrugged without changing his expression. You're angry at this level. The legendary queen's tolerance doesn't seem to be very good. The Halloween Queen looked straight at Noah, and after a while, she suddenly laughed. You're really interesting. The Halloween Queen was like a blooming flower, and a beautiful smile appeared on her face. No one has ever dared to provoke me like this in front of me. Even if there is, it is absolutely impossible to survive. Try to scare people as much as you can. Noah curled his lips. White Yiksha must have provoked you in a worse way than me. Why didn't she die? Because I can't kill her yet. The Halloween Queen puffed up her cheeks. Although it's very unpleasant, I have to admit that this is the truth. Is that so? Noah looked at the Halloween Queen with a faint smile. Then, do you think you can kill me? I can't, right? The Halloween Queen tilted her head and said somewhat naively. At least, I don't have the feeling that I can kill you. You can easily eliminate my power, and you have more sovereignty over the sun than I do. Plus, you have another cosmology. In the box, there shouldn't be anyone who can kill you, right? Oh. Noah was curious. Can't even the existence of a single-digit number. As soon as his voice fell, Noah saw the Halloween Queen looking at him with an extremely strange expression. It was as if she had heard something strange. Don't tell me you don't know anything. The Halloween Queen said. A single-digit number is the law of the world, not a tangible existence. No, it should be said that even the existence itself is uncertain. That kind of thing, you don't even know how many there are, so how can it be counted? The law of the world. Noah was stunned. A single-digit number is the law of the world. A factor that even the existence itself can't be confirmed. Is there even that kind of thing in the box? However, if there is, then it's no wonder that Noah hasn't found any description of a single-digit number in any literature. Because it's a law of the world that can't even be confirmed, and it's not even known if it exists or not. By the way, there are only 17 people in the two-digit number. In terms of strength, I can also be counted. The Halloween Queen blinked her eyes. So, if I can't kill you, no one in the box can kill you, that's what it means. Noah's heart suddenly became active. It turns out that there are only 17 people in the two-digit number. Since a single-digit number is the law of the world, the concept itself, then the 17 people in the two-digit number are probably the highest level existence in this box. If Noah could fight with his full strength, he would be able to fight against a two-digit number of enemies. That meant that no one in the box court could kill him. And if Noah gathers the sovereignty of the 24 suns and draws out all the possibilities in his body, then in this world, there won't even be an existence that can be called Noah's opponent, right? At the thought of this, Noah was even more determined to obtain the sovereignty of the sun and looked at the Halloween Queen. Let's not talk too much. Your knight said that if I come to see you in person, you will give me the sovereignty of the sun. Now, it's time to fulfill the promise. I did say that. The Halloween Queen looked at Noah and suddenly changed the topic. But, I changed my mind now. Hearing this, Noah's face froze and looked at the Halloween Queen with cold eyes. What did you say? The Halloween Queen smiled sweetly. I said, I changed my mind now. Chapter 1579. In the courtyard where the sun was shining brightly, an extremely heavy atmosphere pervaded the entire space. Noah stared fixedly at the Halloween Queen, who was smiling at him as if she had done something normal. A sharp glint gradually appeared in his eyes. Although he had long heard that Halloween Queen's temperament was erratic and she could do anything, Noah really didn't expect that this person could go back on her words. This made Noah feel like he had been played, and his eyes looking at Halloween Queen became colder and colder. As a result, the divine power that was originally flowing on Noah's body's surface like a faint layer of light began to gradually boil, as if there was a flame slowly burning on Noah's body. "Do you want to attack me?" Noah's action not only did not annoy Halloween Queen, but she seemed to have seen an interesting reaction and said so with relish. "It's useless, just like I can't kill you, you certainly can't kill me. If you can't kill me, then you can't get the sun's sovereignty." In the box court, the blessings that originated from the individual were powers that were connected to the individual's soul. Without the consent of the user, even the two-digit existences standing at the top of the box court could not forcefully take away these blessings. The gifts that could be transferred at will were only those that actually existed in the form of weapons, props, and items. Sun sovereignty was a peculiar existence between the two. It could exist in the body of the holder like the gift connected to the soul, but it could also be transferred at will. It could even be integrated into weapons, props, and items to create gift weapons that were connected to the inheritance. At the beginning, when Az-Dakaha was sealed, Dragon Sun sovereignty was lodged in a sword, together with the seal of the final trial of humans. Finally, through the hands of Galgi and Bel, it was transferred into Noah's body. Without the sun sovereignty being lodged in an inherent object, if you want to obtain the sun sovereignty in someone else's body, you have to kill the other party. That was why the Queen of Halloween said that. As long as Noah can't kill Halloween Queen, it is impossible to get the sun sovereignty. Noah also understood this point. Noah took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and retracted his divine power back into his body. He shot the Queen a cold glance, turned around, and left. Seeing this, the Halloween Queen was stunned for a moment before hurriedly speaking. "Wait. I only said that I changed my mind. I didn't say that I wouldn't give you the sovereignty of the sun." This sentence made Noah's movement slightly stagnate. Not only was there no joy in his heart, but it also made the anger that he had suppressed with great difficulty become even more vigorous. Turning around, Noah stared at the Halloween Queen with a piercing gaze. At this moment, Noah made up his mind. Chapter 1580. Rumble. Above the boundless sky, a thundercloud suddenly appeared. Like a wave, it surged to the other side of the sky. A chariot was being pulled by two raging bulls with lightning flashing all over their bodies. Along with the thundercloud that filled the sky, the chariot was moving forward. Of course, the thundercloud that filled the sky didn't come from the chariot. Instead, it came from the bodies of the two raging bulls. The two raging bulls that were surrounded by lightning and carrying the thundercloud were both divine beasts that had been bestowed with Godhead. Under the pull of the two raging bulls, the chariot was running wildly in the sky. And on the chariot, there were three people standing. Myron Shertian was holding the reins and driving the two raging bulls with Godhead as if they were riding horses. He was driving the chariot in an extremely wild manner as he galloped forward. Noah and Fei Si stood behind Myron Shertian. Looking at Myron Shertian, who was skillfully driving the two raging bulls and using them as horses to pull the chariot, they couldn't help but look at each other. Should I say, as expected of the king of gods of the Indian gods? Noah spread out his hands. Even if he descends from the heavens and becomes a human, his majesty as the celestial emperor is still there. He can casually command two divine beasts with Godhead. Those two divine beasts seemed to be His Excellency Shertian's chariot when he was still a god. Fei Si also had some feelings. Even if Master descends from the heavens and becomes a human, he still performs his duties without hesitation. It's admirable. After descending from the heavens and becoming a human, Myron Shirtian's power was simply unbearable to look at compared to when he was Sakra. Not to mention other things, after becoming a human, Myron Shirtian couldn't fly anymore. He could only rely on a chariot to travel in the sky. However, it had to be said that traveling in the sky in this way was more exciting than flying by himself. In the eyes of others, it was a more eye-catching scene. Moreover, Myron Shirtian's chariot was quite luxurious. It was quite eye-catching. As the chariot of the famous Sakra, Noah's Gate of Babylon also had this chariot. However, there was a war chariot, but there was no climate ox that could pull it. Naturally, Imperial Gate Shirtian's chariot was more eye-catching. "Don't waste my time," Yuman Shirtian said without turning his head as he drove the war chariot. "With your abilities, it wouldn't be difficult for you to get the same ride. The only problem is that it isn't easy to get two Godhead climate bowls." Saying these words, Ms. Otto Shirtian fiercely pulled on the reins, causing the two climate bowls to let out a muffled groan, stopping their madly galloping footsteps. "Done." Yuman Shirtian immediately released the reins in his hand and looked at Noah. "Release the group of gods you have sealed here." Fei Si also looked at Noah, obviously waiting for Noah to fulfill his promise. Noah naturally wouldn't be like the Halloween queen, whose temperament was unstable. He would go back on his word and compromise as he wished. Under the gaze of Yuman Shirtian and Fei Si, Noah turned around and faced the boundless sky behind him. He stretched out his hands, as if he was planning to use his palms to hug a sphere, and put his hands together in front of his body. Clang! An extremely strong burst of starlight suddenly bloomed in the center of Noah's palms, turning into a light pillar that suddenly soared into the sky. In an instant, it disappeared into the boundless sky above, and gradually expanded. In the light pillar, one after another, as if they were ruthlessly thrown out, jumped out one after another, and fell into the sky in an extremely embarrassing manner. The light on their body dispersed, revealing their full appearance. In just a short while, the entire sky was densely packed with panic-stricken figures that stabilized themselves and floated in mid-air, causing a real sea of people to appear in the sky. At the forefront of the sea of people, there was still a group of existences that were the strongest among the various groups of gods, numbering in the 3 digits. With the ancient wind divine spirit as the leader, this group of strongest existences struggled to recover from the sudden state of affairs, stabilizing their bodies, and not being as embarrassed as the other gods. Then, this group of strongest existences saw Noah standing on the chariot. All of the strongest existences were shocked and angry, and their bodies surged with an astonishing aura. "Damn it! Bastard! How dare you seal us? Just a mere human." With the eruption of the aura of the strongest existences, the gods and Buddhas in the sky finally noticed Noah's existence, and one after another, they revealed shocked and angry expressions. However, before the gods and Buddhas in the sky could erupt, an extremely sharp gaze swept across all of them. "Don't tell me you want to be sealed again." Noah's pair of deep, dark eyes flashed with a sharp light. "I don't mind doing it again, but this time, don't even think about coming out again." His extremely clear voice reverberated throughout the entire sky, causing the gods and Buddhas to stop breathing, and finally, fear appeared on their faces. Including the strongest existences. At this moment, Fei Si stepped forward and came to Noah's side. She raised her hand, and a flag appeared in her hand, fluttering in the wind. "That's..." The ancient wind divine spirit's expression changed. "The flag of the Queen of Halloween. This is an order from the Queen of Halloween." Fei Si immediately declared loudly. "All the Celtic gods and their subordinate communities are not allowed to be enemies with the human hero Noah Dole. All of you, stand down." A commotion began among the gods and Buddhas in the sky. At this moment, Ayman Shirtian stepped forward again and raised a flag. Seeing that flag, the commotion among the gods and Buddhas in the sky became even more intense. That was because that flag was the flag of the Sky Army. The Sky Army, which was established to annihilate the Demon King, had the martial gods from various mythological systems. And those martial gods were all led by Di-Shir-Tian. In other words, Iman-Shir-Tian was the leader of the Sky Army. Therefore, when Iman-Shir-Tian raised the Sky Army's flag, almost all the gods and Buddhas recognized his identity. D. Sacre. Why? Why is he here? Ignoring the commotion among the gods and Buddhas in the sky, Iman-Shir-Tian also declared loudly. This is an order from the leader of all the gods and Buddhas in the Sky Army. I hereby declare that from today onwards, all the gods and Buddhas in the heavenly realm are not allowed to be enemies with the human hero Noah Dole. Everyone, return to the upper level without delay. The whole place fell into a dead silence. All the gods and Buddhas entered a state of confusion, including the strongest gods and Buddhas. Sakra. The ancient wind divine spirit clenched his fists and shouted. What the hell is going on? What's going on? Iman-Shir-Tian's face was expressionless. Can't you guys guess? Hearing this, the gods and Buddhas looked at each other and vaguely guessed the reason for this development. You are using us as hostages to force the gods and Buddhas in the heavenly realm to compromise. The ancient wind divine spirit glared at Noah. Despicable. Despicable. Noah said sarcastically as if he was amused. So that's how it is. Using hostages is despicable and shameless, and seizing by force is noble character and unquestionable integrity. Thank you for your guidance. The ancient wind divine spirit was speechless, but he couldn't swallow his anger. He looked at Iman-Shir-Tian with a gloomy face. Sakra, are we just going to let this go? Do you still want to cause trouble for him? Iman-Shir-Tian acted as if this had nothing to do with him and didn't care. I don't object, but the premise is that you have a way to deal with another cosmology of the illusory star Tice way. Let me make it clear in advance, in order to save you, we paid a total of 8 sun sovereignty as the price. If you are sealed again, then this time, no one will be able to save you. 8 sun sovereigns. The ancient wind divine spirit was shocked. Doesn't that mean that the human has gathered all the sun sovereigns? That's right. Iman-Shir-Tian looked at the ancient wind divine spirit. So, let's stop here. All of you, go back. This time, the gods of the heavenly realm have lost. The ancient wind divine spirit's expression suddenly became ugly. Glaring at Noah with hatred, the ancient wind divine spirit squeezed out a few words. Let's retreat. The gods and Buddhas in the sky didn't dare to say anything. Chapter 1581. After releasing the gods of heaven sealed by another cosmology, Iman-Shir-Tian drove the Climate Ox chariot and sent Noah and Faith back to the castle. The chariot landed in a corner of the castle and the three of them got off. All right, the gods have been dealt with. It's about time for me to go back. Imperial Gate Shir-Tian looked relaxed. I'll have to trouble you to worry about the lower realm. Hearing this, Noah and Fei Si were slightly surprised. What? Noah could not help but ask. Aren't you going to stay? Stay? Imperial Gate Shir-Tian asked curiously. Why should I stay? Stay to deal with Az Dakaha. Noah frowned. Anyway, you've already descended to become a human, not a god. Even that lizard's another cosmology won't work on you anymore. Isn't it good to stay and help? Although Imperial Gate Shir-Tian's power had greatly decreased compared to when he was the king of gods, he was still in the 4 digits. If such a helper were to stay, it would be a great help to them. After all, in the camp, there were only a handful of people who could reach the 4 digits. If Imperial Gate Shir-Tian stayed to help deal with Az Dakaha, he would be able to share the burden of many people. Noah thought that Maiden Shirtian was planning to stay behind and deal with Aziz Dakaha with the rest of the group. Why did it seem like Imperial Gate Shirtian had no such plans? It was unknown if human Shirtian had seen through Noah's thoughts, but he could not help but laugh. You're right. I have no plans to fight Az Dakaha with you. Noah's brows furrowed even tighter. Not to mention Noah, even Faisi had a confused look on her face. Seeing that, human Shirtian sighed and asked such a question. Do you know what the essence of the final trial is? Faisi was slightly startled by this question. The essence of the final trial? Noah said uncertainly. Isn't it just a trial given to humans? That's right. The so-called humans' final trial is, in fact, a trial given to humans. Human Shirtian nodded. The humans' final trial was created because of humans. Since it is a trial for humans, what kind of training do you think their existence is for humans? Myron Shirtian's words caused Noah's heart to suddenly move. Humanity's final trial, a trial for humanity. Noah raised his eyes and looked at human Shirtian. That is a trial for the entire human race, not for individuals. Correct. Human Shirtian nodded heavily. Humanity's final trial is a trial given to the entire history of humanity. Once it is passed, humanity's history can develop. Otherwise, sooner or later, it will be destroyed. In other words, although humanity's final trial is an extremely frightening calamity that symbolizes the end of humanity, it is also a game to create the future of humanity. Thus, humanity has the obligation to defeat it. Human Shirtian spread his hands. Although I descended to become a human, no matter what, I am unable to defeat humanity's final trial. It is an existence that cannot die. What? Faisi said in surprise. Didn't you say that piercing through Az Dahaka's heart would be enough to defeat him? You are wrong, Queen Knight. Human Shirtian shook his head. If piercing through his heart could defeat Az Dahaka, then Az Dahaka would have died at least 3 times. 3 times. Faisi was stunned. When Az Dahaka first became humanity's final trial, the martial gods of the heaven realm led by me descended to become a human and fought with him. The ceiling pillars on his head and shoulders were placed by us when we descended, and at the same time, pierced through his heart. Human Shirtian explained. However, that fellow suddenly came back to life, leaving us with no choice but to seal him up. Later on, that fellow broke out of the seal and caused a huge ruckus 200 years ago. In the end, he was sealed up by the great alliance of Stratum rulers led by No Name, who had yet to lose his name and flag. Even so, we were still unable to take his life. At this point, human Shirtian cast a meaningful gaze at Noah, who did not look surprised at all. And seeing that you don't look surprised at all, a month ago, when you fought with Az Dahaka, who had just broken out of the seal, you should have also successfully killed him once, right? Yes. Noah said helplessly. In the end, that guy suddenly came back to life and attacked me. I was careless and was hit, suffering heavy injuries. That was how I ended up defeated. That's already very impressive. Human Shirtian laughed bitterly. We, the gods of the heaven realm, only managed to kill him once. 200 years ago, the great alliance of the Stratum dominators gathered many powerful communities, including a 4-digit number, and only managed to kill him once. Yet, you managed to kill him single-handedly. You have the right to boast. But, since we can't kill Az Dahaka, what should we do? Faisi had a bitter look on her face. Could it be that we can only obediently wait for death? Of course not. Human Shirtian answered directly. If you want to defeat humanity's final trial, it's impossible to rely on brute force alone. Since that's the embodiment of humanity's doomsday, then as long as we can unravel the cause of humanity's doomsday, it's possible to defeat him. The cause of humanity's doomsday. Noah muttered to himself. We, the Sky Army, have also researched the mystery of Az Dahaka's final trial. In the end, although we've solved most of it, we still can't confirm the key parts. Yumin Shirtian looked closely at Noah. So, I can only give you a hint. Noah immediately perked up. Under such circumstances, Yumin Shirtian said solemnly. If you want to solve Az Dahaka's mystery, then you have to start from the evil aspect. Evil? Noah was stunned. After all, that guy is an existence known as absolute evil, and he's also the evil god of the sect of fire. Chapter 1582. Clang. When Noah's mind sank into the sun's brand, the 24 different engravings in the sun shone with dazzling light. That light was more dazzling and resplendent than when Noah had tried to use the sun's sovereignty to guide his own possibility. Compared to the last time, this time, it was not only the number of sun sovereigns that differed, but also the difference between incomplete and complete sun sovereigns. The 24 sun sovereigns were only considered complete sun when they were gathered. They could control the power of the sun in countless parallel worlds and even boxes. Now, this power was in Noah's body. With the awakening of this power, Noah's originally somewhat excited mood gradually calmed down. He calmed down and focused all his attention on the 24 sun sovereigns. Dazzling light surged like a tide, spreading across the entire cosmic sea like a million miles of brilliance. Just like the last time, the dazzling light illuminated the entire cosmic sea and directly shone out of the cosmic sea, gently sprinkling on every corner of Noah's body. Noah, who had already experienced it once, did not let the power of the sun's sovereignty stay in his body. Instead, he followed the memory of the last time and gathered all the light in one direction. If someone knew the situation in Noah's body clearly, they would definitely be able to discover it. That direction was the deepest part of Noah's body. Under the cover of the dazzling light that gradually gathered, a throbbing began to occur in the deepest part of Noah's body. Noah was neither happy nor sad. He gathered more of the power of the sun's sovereignty together and gathered it in the deepest part of his body, trying to connect with the throbbing possibility. Suddenly, the dazzling light condensed from the power of the 24 sun sovereignty was like a spider web, entangling the throbbing possibility bit by bit. When all the light gathered together and firmly entangled the throbbing possibility in the deepest part of Noah's body, Noah took a deep breath. With a thought, he let the dazzling light slowly draw out the throbbing possibility. Last time, he had failed at this step. As the power of the sun's sovereignty was not enough to draw out all the possibilities in Noah's body, even though the power of the sun's sovereignty firmly wrapped around Noah's possibilities, those huge possibilities were still hidden in the deepest part of Noah's body, not even to the extent of popping out. This time, Noah gathered the power of all 24 sovereign suns in the deepest part of his body without wasting a single bit. He connected with the throbbing and carefully pulled it out. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The possibility that was originally just a little throbbing suddenly trembled violently like never before. This phenomenon did not surprise Noah. Instead, it delighted Noah. It was good that there was a reaction. What he was most afraid of was that it didn't respond. Chapter 1583. Here. In an open space at the edge of the vampire's castle, Pesht, who was wearing a black and white spotted dress, let out a delicate shout. Black wind was unceasingly swirling around her body. Like a tornado, she soared into the sky. That won't do. What you are doing is purely increasing your power. Seeing the situation before her, Athena coldly berated Pesht. What you need to increase is not your power. Instead, you need to increase the depth of your power. Focus your attention and control your power so that you can increase the deeper level of your power. Control my power, increase the deeper level of my power. Pesht muttered. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Following Pest's concentration, the black wind that soared into the sky gradually grew smaller. It was no longer as berserk as before. Instead, it was like a pitch-black whirlwind. With Pest as the center, it began to rotate like a sphere. The size of the black wind gradually decreased. However, the color of the black wind blowing around Pest grew deeper and deeper. Seeing the color of the black wind blowing around Pest becoming darker and darker, Letitia's pretty face gradually turned serious. She exclaimed in astonishment. "That's right. That's right." Letitia, who was beside Athena, had a solemn expression on her face. With a surprised expression, she said, "Undoubtedly, her power has weakened. Why do I feel that this situation has become even more dangerous?" "Yes." Black Rabbit also spoke in a surprised manner. Black Rabbit also feels that even though Miss Pest's power has weakened, it has become even more threatening. "Is that so?" Fei now had a puzzled expression. "Why am I unable to sense anything?" "What everyone said is true." Yao stared closely at Pest, who was enveloped by the black winds, and said softly. "The current Pest is much more powerful than the previous Pest." Hearing those words, Fei now could only nod her head in confusion. It would appear that Fei now truly did not sense anything. That was understandable. To begin with, Fei Niao and Yao were two completely different types of people. Fei Niao's light of might was capable of bestowing upon its target a simulated divine spark, increasing its power to the maximum by several times, or even several tens of times. However, this grace was only effective on other things. Fei Niao herself was still an ordinary person. Only with enough grace would the flying bird be able to display a powerful combat strength. On the other hand, Yao's life catalogue allowed him to obtain the talents and gifts of beasts. Due to this, Yao's hearing might be slightly weaker than the Black Rabbit's, but his 5 senses were extremely sharp. He was able to detect the current threat from Pest. "It's only been 2 days of special training, and you've already achieved such results." Letitia was happy for her colleague's growth. If she continues to grow at this speed, Pest might really be able to reach 4 digits before Az Dakaha breaks out of his seal. When the time comes, we'll have another powerful combatant on our side. Black Rabbit also said happily. "That's great." As expected of the former Demon King, Fei Niao sighed and said with some annoyance. "Since the effect is so good, why don't I ask Palace to help me train as well?" Hearing Fei Niao's words, Yao didn't say anything. He just reached out his hand and held the round wooden sculpture hanging around his neck. "If I can make more friends, can I also become that strong?" Athena acted as if she didn't hear their conversation. Actually, this former goddess had already discovered the uniqueness of these girls after observing them for the past 2 days. First was Letitia. Ever since this vampire concubine retrieved her divinity and completed her gift, her strength had returned to the peak state when she was a demon king. Her strength had reached 4 digits in one fell swoop, and she was probably even stronger than 16 knights. In Athena's opinion, Letitia was not at all weaker than her former self. Furthermore, not only was Letitia powerful herself, but she also possessed the specially made 25th sun. Once she used that, not to mention Athena, even the great sage equaling heaven who was supported by the ancient covenant would not be a match for Letitia. As for Black Rabbit, although her strength was slightly weaker than Letitia, she was still at 5 digits. She possessed the gift of a weapon that simulated a divinity. Apart from a god like Pest, it would not be easy to find a match for Black Rabbit among the 5 digits. For a mere god's descendant to be able to reach such a level, it was enough to show how powerful Black Rabbit was. After all, even the god slayers were only in the 4 to 5 digits. For the Black Rabbit to be able to occupy a place in the 5 digits, it was much stronger than the mythological beasts and subordinate gods in the world of the god slayers. As for Fei Niao and Yao, with their current strength, they were completely unable to enter Athena's view. However, as the former goddess of wisdom, Athena's wisdom eyes had long seen through them. Although these two girls were weak at the moment, they had great potential. Their potential was naturally nothing compared to Noah, who possessed nearly limitless possibilities. However, it wasn't that Fei Niao and Yao were too weak. Rather, it was that Noah was too much of a cheat. At the very least, Athena felt that regardless of whether it was Fei Niao or Yao, once they grew up, their future accomplishments would definitely surpass Letitia's. Undoubtedly, they aren't gods. However, these girls possess potential and battle prowess surpassing that of gods. This box is indeed an inconceivable place. Just as Athena was thinking this, a throbbing feeling suddenly emerged from the depths of her heart, causing her eyes to narrow. Then, why did you say that something had happened to him? Ah. Black Rabbit shrunk his neck back. I merely thought that since Miss Palace and Lady Letitia were so flustered, something must have happened. Fei Niao and Yao immediately grabbed Black Rabbit's ears angrily. It's you, Rabbit, ruining things again. You must be punished. No. Don't. Black Rabbit screamed miserably. Then, when Noah opened his eyes, his entire body was drenched in cold sweat. It was as if he had experienced an unimaginable nightmare and seen something unreasonable. Thus, Aster didn't know what had happened. Athena also didn't know what had happened. However, she seemed to be able to see through Noah's heart. Her bewitching snake eyes turned toward Noah. Did something unexpected happen? Athena was more or less able to guess what had happened. After all, Athena knew that Noah was preparing to obtain the remaining 8 sovereignty of the suns today. He was going to gather all of the sovereignty of the suns in one go to draw out the possibility of his body. From the looks of it, Noah should have successfully gathered all of the sovereignty of the suns and attempted to draw them out. However, something unexpected happened midway and caused Noah to become like this. Athena had never seen Noah's expression so heavy before. Moreover, it was not only heaviness, but also confusion, panic, and even fear. This kind of Noah, let alone after knowing him, even in Noah's lifetime memory, Athena had never seen it before. In the end, what happened? I don't know how to explain it to you. Noah laughed bitterly. After all, I also don't understand what happened. What was the crimson space above the between worlds? What were those red shadows that looked like the Grim Reaper? Also, what exactly was that extremely terrifying pair of eyes that caused Noah's mind to explode with a bang? Noah didn't know any of these. Noah only knew that it was definitely not a dream. When he was young, Noah often dreamt of himself looking at the sky full of feathers in the between worlds. In the end, it was not just a dream, but a revelation that was connected to Noah's destiny. Since the first time he entered the between worlds, Noah had never had that kind of dream again. Now, suddenly dreaming of the between worlds, and the inexplicable crimson space above the between worlds, Noah absolutely could not treat it as a pure dream. If it was just a dream, it would definitely not make Noah's heart palpitate to this extent. Could it be? Noah murmured with a gloomy face. That is the culprit that caused the chaos in the between worlds, and destroyed the worlds. Noah's muttering made Athena faintly guess something, but she did not ask much. Now, what Noah needed was not questioning, but time. When Noah recovered, Athena would know what happened. Then, Athena changed the topic and asked about another matter. You have tried to use the 24 sun sovereignty to draw out the possibility of the body, right? Did you fail? Athena's words made Noah more or less wake up. Because of the unexpected things, Noah forgot about this matter. Even forgetting such an important thing, one could imagine how much of an impact the image had on Noah. So, Noah calmed down a little, closed his eyes, felt the condition of his body, and shook his head. It did fail. Why? Chapter 1585. Unknowingly, a month had passed quietly. During this month, nothing special happened. No, rather than saying that nothing special happened, it would be more accurate to say that nothing particularly big happened. Due to the arrival of Noah, many things were resolved, but it also caused many other things. For example, the annihilation of Maxwell and the three-headed dragon's clones was a matter that had been resolved. Thanks to this, not only did everyone no longer have to worry about the three-headed dragon's clone spreading to every corner of the box court, bringing a serious disaster to the lower levels of the box court, they did not even have to worry about the Demon King Alliance interfering. After all, the people of the Demon King Alliance, in fact, except for Galgi, Bel, Glea, and Aurora, were all pawns of the God group. Now, Maxwell of the third perpetual motion organ had been eliminated, Galgi and his group had raised the flag of rebellion, and the God group had been attacked by Noah. The Demon King Alliance suddenly seemed to have disappeared without a trace and never appeared again. As for the many God group in the heaven realm, perhaps they were really afraid of Noah and did not dare to act rashly. In the eyes of the God group, Noah had long been a threat that was no less than the final trial of humans. Firstly, Noah had another cosmology called illusory star Taisway. Those gods and star spirits who were the strongest species, whether in 2 or 3 digits, had no chance of winning against Noah. Secondly, Noah had gathered all 24 sun sovereigns, which was something that even White Yiksha and Queen of All Saints had not done. The God group could not help but be on guard against the threat of so many sun sovereigns. Thirdly, Noah himself also had a high level of fighting power, and his strength was enough to reach 3 digits. He could even match Queen of All Saints, who could reach 2 digits in strength. With so many trump cards, in the entire box court, who could take down Noah? Just like how to deal with Az-Dakaha could only be carried out by humans. If they wanted to deal with Noah, they had to be a god spirit or a star spirit. Apart from the pure-blooded dragons, who were also one of the 3 strongest species, the rest of the characters were at most in the 3 digits like the great sage equaling heaven. In the end, even if such an existence did not face the threat of being unconditionally sealed, under Noah's another cosmology, their spiritual lattice would still be reduced by half. Their strength would be greatly reduced, and it was possible that they would be reduced to 4 digits, or even 5 digits. No matter how many enemies of this level came, they would just be delivering food to Noah. Back then, the gods and Buddhas that Noah had sealed after the most powerful species proved that point. In addition to the sovereignty of all 24 suns, the gods no longer dared to openly target Noah. Thus, for the past month, Noah's life had been relatively peaceful. Noah knew that the gods had not given up on the sovereignty of the suns that he possessed. Unless the gods had given up on creating a new faction. Therefore, the gods were definitely still eyeing Noah covetously, waiting for an opportunity to appear. Without the interference of the gods and the Demon King Alliance, and the 3 demonic dragons clones had all been dealt with, this period of time was naturally rather peaceful. The only thing that wasn't calm was Az-Dakaha's seal. According to the reports that Sarah and Shadora had received, recently, there had been frequent earthquakes on the ground. For this reason, they had sent people to investigate. The result was that the people from Thousand Eyes had sent a message from White Yiksha. Az-Dakaha's seal will be broken in the near future. We must be prepared for battle. This was the message that White Yiksha had sent. Thus, the peace that had lasted for a month was finally about to be broken. The atmosphere in the entire vampire castle gradually became tense. No matter which community it was, they were all prepared for battle. Including a no-name. Wang. In the empty space at the edge of the vampire castle, Pest slowly opened her hand, causing a black wind to gradually appear. With her as the center, the black wind began to rotate. Compared to a month ago, the color of the black wind was extremely different. Just like that, the pitch-black wind of death revolved around Pest. Under Pest's control, the wind of death would swirl around her like a tornado, then a whirlwind, then a violent storm, and then a gentle breeze. Her control of the wind of death had reached perfection. At the same time, the aura on Pest's body was also extremely different from before. A month ago, the aura of this death god of the Black Death gave people the feeling that it was like a shadow. It was erratic and rather oppressive. Now, the aura that Pest gave people was like that of a true death god. It was ominous and filled with a sense of danger. It was somewhat similar to the aura of Athena. Seeing Pest skillfully controlling the pitch-black wind, all of the members of No Name, with the exception of Ren, were mesmerized by the scene before them. Floating in the pitch-black wind, the scene of a petite young girl wearing a black and white spotted dress fluttering in the wind was ominous. However, it did not hinder her beauty. Pest possessed an extremely delicate and adorable appearance to begin with. When combined with that beautiful scene, it was not strange for one to be mesmerized by her. Looking in Pest's direction, Noah's superb perception ability clearly reflected Pest's aura that was clearly different from a month ago. Seeing this, Noah couldn't help but smile. With this, we have another 4-digit battle power on our side. That's right. I am not like Master, who has already gathered all 24 Sun Sovereigns and accomplished something that even the White Night King and Halloween Queen were unable to do, becoming a true peak existence in the box court. Those words caused the gazes of everyone present to converge on Noah. Facing the gazes of everyone present, Noah bitterly smiled in his heart. He was unable to voice out his bitterness. Chapter 1586. After a month, the fact that Noah had gathered all the Sun Sovereigns was no longer a secret. Not only the group of No Name, but even Sarah, Shadora, Vera, and the others knew about this. It was not that Noah wanted to show off, but the fact that Noah had gathered all the Sun Sovereigns was known by all the gods in the heavens. Even the communities under the gods knew about this. In this way, how could this matter be hidden? Therefore, almost everyone in the box court already knew that the human named Noah Dole had not only sealed millions of gods, including many of the strongest species in the 3 digits, but also obtained the Sun Sovereigns from the White Yiksha and the Queen of Halloween, gathering all the Sun Sovereigns. With the another cosmology, that was more than 3 digits above the box court, and with all the Sun Sovereigns, now, the people in the box court began to spread that Noah, a human, had the ability to stand at the top of the box court. However, who knew that Noah was a member of the family and knew about his own matters? Noah's another cosmology, he could use it like it was his own arm. However, as for the Sun Sovereigns, Noah was still unable to use it to draw out the terrifying possibility in his body and become a supreme existence. Of course, with Noah's current strength, it was not difficult to stand at the top of the box court. However, knowing that he still had a huge opportunity to improve, but could not successfully implement it, how could Noah not feel bitter? Although, Athena also said that even the 24 Sun Sovereigns could not draw out the possibility in Noah's body, it proved that the possibility in his body was extremely terrifying, and Noah should be happy. Therefore, this matter, Noah was half happy and half worried, and troubled for an entire month. Noah even wondered if he could rely on Letitia's 25th Sun Sovereign to complete his plan. Unfortunately, the Sun Sovereign of Ophiuchus was not the orthodox Sun Sovereign, but a special Sun Sovereign that was specially made to reward Letitia for becoming a full authority ruler. This Sun Sovereign could only be used by Letitia. Letitia had once said that the knights of the box court who guarded the order of the box court could also be used by the vampires. Other than the vampires, no one else would be able to use the sun even if they obtained it. It was the Sun Sovereign that was tailor-made for Letitia. Even if it possessed some of the magical effects of Sun Sovereignty, it could not be counted as true Sun Sovereignty. The proof was that Letitia could only use the Sun Sovereignty and transform into a pure-blooded dragon species. However, she did not receive any enhancements corresponding to the inheritance, nor did she have the ability to summon a star beast. In fact, she did not even have the many wonderful uses that the sun's sovereignty should have. This sun's sovereignty could not even be used by individuals who needed sun's sovereignty to complete their spiritual lattice. In view of this, from all aspects, the Ophiuchus constellation's sun's sovereignty was useless to Noah. Only Letitia could use it. When No Name was destroyed by the Demon King Alliance and Letitia was captured by the Demon King Alliance, who had always been pursuing the sovereignty of the sun, only took away Letitia's godhead and did not have any ideas about the sovereignty of the sun. This was also one of the reasons why the Demon King Alliance, who had always been pursuing the sovereignty of the sun, only took away Letitia's godhead and did not have any ideas about the sovereignty of the sun. In any case, gathering all the sun's sovereigns was a good thing. Although Noah did not achieve his goal, it could not be said that he was unhappy. Thinking of this, Noah secretly felt helpless in his heart and scratched his head. Even if you praise me so much, I still have opponents that I can't defeat. Noah's words made the group of girls present go silent. What's wrong? Faye now asked Noah. You still haven't solved the puzzle of Az Dakaja's final trial as a human. No. Noah sighed. Otherwise, that lizard wouldn't be a thorn in my heart. Really? Yaodu was a little surprised. Not even a little progress. There is still progress. Noah corrected. It's just that the key part has not been solved. In this month, other than drawing out possibilities, Noah spent the rest of his time solving the puzzle of Az Dakaja's final trial as a human. With the help of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, Noah successfully solved most of the puzzles according to the hints given by Maiden Shirtian. However, Noah could not find a clue about the most central part. Not to mention Noah, even Athena could not solve it. Even the gods of the heavens had pondered over this puzzle for thousands of years. How could Noah and Athena be able to solve it so easily in a month's time? It's just the most crucial part. Noah's tone was a little irritated. It's the most crucial part that I can't find a clue about. There was not much time left until Az Dakaja broke the seal. If he could not solve the puzzle of the human's final trial, then, when the time came, Noah would still be unable to defeat Az Dakaja. Could it be that he could only seal Az Dakaja like the gods of the heavens and the great alliance of the former rulers of the hierarchy? Just as Noah had this thought, not far away, Ren ran over in a flurry. As he ran, Ren shouted with great joy. Say! Everyone! Mr. 16th Night has woken up. This sentence made everyone present stunned, then their faces lit up with joy. Vampire's Castle, Throne Hall, in the base of No Name, in a ward. Was I unconscious for a whole month and a half? On the bed, 16th Night scratched his head and said in a bad mood. Although it feels good to be alive, I didn't expect that so many interesting things would happen while I was unconscious. Who should I look for compensation? When the group of No Name heard 16th Night's words, they did not know whether to laugh or cry. Just like you said, it feels good to be alive. Noah crossed his arms in front of him and said to 16th Night. You can't ask for more. 16th Night, you should be glad that you woke up at the right time. Speaking of which, before I fought with that lizard, I heard that you sacrificed yourself heroically. I almost cried. 16th Night's mouth curved into an unruly arc, as a comrade who also survived. I really want to ask you, little brother, did you really fight with that guy alone and almost forced it into a desperate situation? When he said this, 16th Night's expression was still as arrogant as before, but the seriousness and gravity in his tone was quite obvious. To be honest, ever since I was born, I have never met an opponent that I couldn't defeat with my fists. That guy was definitely the first. 16th Night raised his hand and slowly clenched it into a fist. I still remember the first time I met that guy. I threw a punch at it, but the lizard didn't even take a step back. Instead, my fist was shattered. Everyone suddenly became silent. From then on, I knew that guy was different from the people I met before. 16th Night turned his head and looked at Noah. Can you really defeat it? Under 16th Night's gaze, Noah slowly closed his eyes. After a while, he suddenly opened them. Yes. Is that so? 16th Night was silent for a while and then shrugged. As expected of little brother. I originally thought that you were at most at the same level as me. Now I know that the monster has been by my side for a long time. This doesn't sound like something you would say, 16th Night. Noah could not help but say. What? After experiencing failure once, you've fallen into depression. Ha. 16th Night looked at Noah in disbelief. Then, he started laughing loudly. Oi oi oi, little brother, you couldn't possibly be thinking that I'm the type of person who can't accept failure, right? Then, what is the truth? Noah said calmly. You who have never experienced failure before, are you able to calmly face this failure? The smile on 16th Night's face gradually disappeared as he looked around. He saw that Black Rabbit, Fei Niao, Yao, Ren, Letitia, and even Pest were all looking at 16th Night with complicated gazes. 16th Night clicked his tongue. He seemed to be extremely displeased with this situation. Then, he suddenly thought of something and laughed. Hey, little brother, let's fight. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.